My name is Cheryl Ellsworth. I work at the Utah State Board of Education. I am the Family Community Engagement Specialist for the state. I support LEAs, specifically districts, charter schools, in better engaging families in the process of school. If you were to talk to any state agency person who does my level of work, they're realizing, and I'm realizing, that districts are coming to me, charters are coming to me, and they're saying, you know, we're not engaging families like we should. Specifically, our most marginalized communities do not feel part of the school process. How can we better engage families? And in turn, when I'm talking to families, they are saying, I want to be part of this whole process, and I want to help my kids. Sometimes I don't know how, or sometimes I don't feel welcome at school. So hearing these two voices, I'm realizing the want is there. Just being able to make that bridge is important. So some of the things that we've started rolling out as a state is, one, doing home visits through the Parent-Teacher Home Visit Project model. And this model has 5 non-negotiables. The first non-negotiable is that the visits are voluntary. It's voluntary for the families and teachers so that these relationships can be authentic. The second, teachers are trained, but they're also compensated for their time. I think a lot of times teachers are doing a lot of extra work and they aren't being compensated, and they should be. The third, we aren't targeting students. So we're not going to just like a certain kind of student. This is for a cross-section of students. Fourth, we are talking about hopes and dreams at these visits. I mean, it means a lot, and it even changed my paradigm as a school teacher who did visits under this model. When you can ask a family, what do you want for your child? And at that moment, they have the opportunity to say, this is what I would like for my child. This is what my hopes and dreams for them this year, in 5 years, or after high school is. And finally, the last non-negotiable is that teachers go in pairs. And they reflect after and say, like, what did we learn that we can bring back to the classroom to be better teachers for that student? So, you know, because the role is fairly new in our state, family engagement has always been a component in Title I schools, but I'm being approached schools are reaching out to me in all capacities, whether they're Title I or not. And so one of the things that both from the special education side of this agency and through Title I, I'm introducing myself at the directors' meetings, and they're getting to know me and realizing that I can be a support for them and be a thinking partner and helping them to make goals, right? Because every community is different. I'm not saying that home visits is the silver bullet for everybody. I'm not saying academic parent-teacher teams, which is another way of doing parent-teacher conferences, is the way to do it for everybody. I am saying, what does your community need? How can I be a thinking partner with you, and what can we do to move forward with that? When this position was created at the state level, it was honestly really daunting, right? As one person supporting our massive state with a lot of need. And we have very remote populations. We have urban, we have suburban, we have rural, we have all kinds of communities. And again, family engagement looks and feels a different way for different communities. So as I was researching, I realized there was family engagement work being done. And on a national scale, there is an organization called the Flamboyant Foundation. And the Flamboyant Foundation, every 2 years, has a fellowship. And I felt like, as a state, I really wanted us to apply for this fellowship because it would help us to develop a 1 to 3 year strategic plan to help our state in family engagement. In our cohort, we're the only state approach, and we're doing a K-16 approach. So we have an LEA leader from Salt Lake City School District, an LEA leader from Granite School District, and someone from the University of Utah, and I'm representing the state. On top of that, we have an advisory committee that we bring our information back to. So we have representatives that are parents, teachers, administrators, parents of students with disabilities, parents of students who are generally in more of a marginalized community, parents that are not from marginalized communities, right? We want to hear from all different voices. And we go to this advisory committee and say, we're thinking of this. What are your thoughts? We're at the very beginning of our process. It's a 20-month process and we're about 6 months in. However, what's been really exciting so far is we've been doing a landscape assessment. We're seeing what are families saying about school? What are teachers saying about families? What are administrators saying about families? We're trying to hear from all of these voices, and something that we are realizing is that family engagement is not an add-on. It is a part of teaching and learning. And I'm hearing that from all the voices that come to the table to say, we want to do better, and it's time that we do. This is a school that is in a more remote location. And the teachers generally do not look like the students. And the teachers have made assumptions for a very long time about this certain population of students. A teacher came up to me and said to me, Cheryl, because of the parent-teacher home visit project model of home visits, I have been able to dispel some misconceptions about families. I realize that kids are loved, they are encouraged to go to college, they do understand what responsibility is. Here I am teaching my children about responsibility, but I go to the home visits and realize this one child is rounding up goats. She is getting firewood for dinner and making dinner. I think she understands what responsibility is. Now, I do want to connect it to my classroom, but for me to say, you don't know what responsibility is, that was an assumption that I made until I went to the visits. I realized I had all these misconceptions. And so when I have conversations like that, and where teachers are saying, I do have biases, and I have felt certain ways about families, and I have kept them at arm's length and said, we'll just take care of school. And realizing, in the words of Dr. Karen Mapp, that families really are co-producers and co-educators. And to see families trusting in a community for a very long time where trust has not been there, I feel like we're moving forward in a good direction. When I moved here and decided to pursue a job at the state, that was a really scary decision for me because I loved the classroom. However, my experience with family and community engagement as a teacher completely changed my paradigm as an educator, and I realized that I could make an impact on a ton of educators and say to them, families want to be engaged. Although they may come from a different culture than you, although their upbringing may be different than yours, they care about their kids. No parent is sending a child out the door and saying I hope you fail today. Families want their kids to succeed. It's only created this greater energy within me to not give up on this work, because I think a lot of times, again, people feel like family engagement is an add-on, but it's not an add-on. It's a part of teaching and learning. And I think once I made that paradigm shift in my education process as an educator, I can then fully give my testimonial to the work of family and community engagement to other teachers. I think I would use the words of my mom, who is an immigrant to this country. I'm the first person in my family to go to college, and my mom, to me, was a very engaged parent. To the school, maybe they wouldn't have thought so because she wasn't a part of the PTA necessarily because she was working. She did everything she could to come to different activities, but it didn't mean that she could come to all of them. So one thing I would say to any administrator or any school leader that's wondering about the importance of family and community engagement is that there are parents who want and need support. And sometimes as a system, we're the ones saying, this is how you're supposed to be engaged. However, family engagement looks and feels a different way to each family. And I think us celebrating what families are bringing to the table and supporting them in what they're doing already is where we need to go, so that kids can feel like what their families are bringing to the school matters. And even if it's not what the school says is the right way, families are trying.